Hello rock stars, Matt Vanderbo here. Hey, in this previous video, I talked about why I personally chose to pursue a musical career where I make music for reality TV shows, as opposed to chasing the much more grandiose and higher paying placements like commercials or movie trailers or even scoring videos. And in that lesson, I also talked about how reality TV placements can often only pay pennies, sometimes even less than pennies. And I'm not joking here, not being facetious. I literally mean they will pay pennies, sometimes even micro pennies. And at this point, an inquisitive composer is probably asking themselves,
if you're only making a tiny amount of money, how can you possibly turn that into a full-time career?
And so today's video is going to shed light on that very thing, and I'm going to take you behind the scenes, pull back the curtain, and show you some of my recent royalty statements to show you how the maths in your favor, and it all comes down to the power of the almighty rerun. Now, I do love opening my royalty statements to find placements on the NFL. Like, that's a great feeling, and they typically pay rather well. It seems like for every 20 to 30 second placement I get on a football game, it equates to about $200 to $250 worth of royalties. And that's nice. Hey, one placement for $250, I'll take it. But here's the downside to getting your music on something like an NFL game. Those games are only aired one time. Now, NBC may rerun that game like 3 or 4 in the morning when nobody is watching, just because they have to fill some airtime. But by and large, every sporting event is ran one time, when it happens, and that's it. Then the sporting world moves on to the next game, and starting tomorrow, that game was a distant memory. So you get this nice, handsome royalty payment for one airing, but that's it. You will never see money in the future for that because that game is probably never going to be reran. So I do love seeing those on my statements, but I don't get as excited for those as I get when I see all of the reality TV shows that are high-performing, highly reran shows. Now, before we get too deep into the weeds here, I will tell you right off the top that there are many factors that influence what kind of money you will make on your royalty back end. And we're not going to get into any of those factors today, other than I will give you this overall umbrella lesson that your payments are largely going to be dictated by the number of eyeballs on a show. Simply put, the more people that watch a show, the higher your royalties will be. Every network has negotiated different deals with ASCAP and BMI and all the other PROs around the world to determine how much their royalty rates are going to be. And it used to be that, and I'm sure this is still the case, that MTV was the best paying cable channel of all of them, followed by VH1. And then you go way down the line, think of all the cable channels, there's probably 100 and some of them out there. Way at the bottom, you've got these obscure channels that people just don't watch much of. And to go along with the eyeballs thing, a show that airs at 7 p.m. is going to get more viewership than something that airs at 4 in the morning. And so your time of day influences how much money you make. And that's all I'm going to touch on for that. There will be more in a future video. But the real beauty of reality TV shows is that they are ran over and over and over again through the course of a year to 2 years to 3 years. In fact, the very first placement that I ever got was on a TV show called Catfish. This was probably back in 2012 or so. I am still getting money from that placement today. And right now it's 2025. 13 years later, I am still making money off of that placement. And that's the beauty of reality TV. If you've got a show that is not time specific, then it will just keep going and churning you money every time it airs. You will get paid every single time your music comes through a TV, regardless of when the initial broadcast of that show was. This is why I tell people that making musical cues for reality TV is kind of like the same concept as a pyramid scheme, only not slimy at all. You're at the top of the pyramid and all of your cues are down here. They're like little worker bees that go out and run around and get placements on these reality shows and churn out money over the course of the next decade or two, and they just funnel it back to you. So you're just sitting at home twiddling your thumbs watching that NFL game, and money is continually coming into you. So it's a beautiful business model, really, and it's one that doesn't exist outside of any type of royalty-based work. So if you happen to have an hourly or a salary job, when you clock out or when you go home, the juice stops running. You stop getting paid. And if you are ever terminated from your employment, the money's gone, okay? Now you're in the unemployment line because you have no more money coming in. Whereas with royalties, that money will continue to come in for as long as you live, even beyond how long you live. So if you happen to die and your music is still generating royalties, you can bequeath your royalties to whoever you want, your kids, your grandkids. This music will continue making money for your estate long after you are dead. And you just can't say the same for any other job, at least none that I can think of. So really quickly, before we look at these royalty statements, I do want to tell you that a good musical cue is anyone that makes money for you. But a high-performing cue is one that will be placed on multiple shows on multiple different networks and live all these different lives throughout the years. The beauty of a good reality cue is that even if it is placed on a dud of a show that makes you next to nothing, it can go on to be placed on a higher paying show next week. Okay, these aren't like hamburgers where you take a bite of the hamburger and now the waiter says,
"Well, crap, I can't serve that hamburger to anybody else."
A cue, even if it's used 100 times, can still be used 200 times. If it's usable enough and good enough and the editors like it, then it will be placed all over the TV. So you could have one cue that goes on to get a great spot on an MTV show, and then the next placement it gets is on National Geographic. But then it gets over here to a VH1 show. But then it goes over here to the DIY network. But then the same cue gets on a football game. Woo! And then it gets put on a Bravo show. Okay, it's living all these different lives, getting all sorts of money from all these different places. Again, it's your worker bee that's out here while you at the top of your little personal pyramid scheme are just sitting back collecting the money on work that you might have done 10 years ago. Okay, so now the moment you've probably been waiting for. Let's see how all these small placements can add up to a sizable sum of money. I'm going to put some screenshots here on the board of my ASCAP and BMI royalty checks. Yes, I do get money from both PROs. No, you cannot be a member of both. You can only be a member of one. But about 7 years ago, I switched from ASCAP to BMI. I left my existing catalog with ASCAP, so they're still collecting money for all of those tracks. And every piece of music I've made in the past 7 years and going forward is now collected on by BMI. So I get 2 checks every quarter, which is pretty fun. And I get to show them both to you, which is hopefully educational. Okay, so here, this is my BMI statement. And I kind of had to zoom in on certain parts of it so you could see. But here's a handful of placements that I've gotten on the Real Housewives series. And you see the show name along with the episode title. But you can also see how many times that show was reran during that 3-month quarter. Okay, so some of them, they were only aired one time. Those would probably be the older shows. But then you see some that have reran 8 times, 10 times, 20 times. So now let's zoom over here to the royalties so you can see how much money these things accrued. And I'll just scroll through them now. And you can see that some of them are quite literally paying pennies, but others are paying a good sizable amount, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. And then occasionally you'll see some stuff that's in the $200 range, 200, 250 bucks. And that's from the shows that are reran 15 to 20 times within that quarter. So hopefully now you can see that if you have enough cues out there generating these placements and passive revenue for you, all of these payments can be adding up to a substantial amount of money. Okay, so now let's flip over and take a look at a few pages from my ASCAP statement recently. But none of this is new music for me. Like I said, I stopped being a member of ASCAP 7 years ago. And so all of this you are seeing right now is the result of music that I made previous to the past 7 years, or placements that happened way back then and are still being reran. And again, you can see how this money is all over the map, from cents to a few dollars to hundreds of dollars. So hopefully now that I've taken you behind the curtain and shown you the power of reruns that come with reality TV shows, and now that you've seen some of the dollar figures and see that you can just scroll page after page after page of this stuff, I hope now you understand the power of reality TV shows and why I think I made a great decision in choosing this particular path of the sync music business. Now, of course, different strokes for different folks. I am not trying to twist anybody's arm and say, you need to be doing cues for reality TV shows, because that might not be in your business plan at all, and that's fine. As long as you are making music and enjoying the process and having fun while doing it, then you are succeeding. And it's just the icing on the cake when you start making money. But if you want to turn this into a full-time job, hopefully this enlightens you as to how it can be done if you choose to go that reality TV cue career path. And now I'll end with my customary joke, this one courtesy of my daughter. Why should you never trust a staircase? Because they're always up to something. See ya!